Hello, I'm Richard Hooper and this is SatTV Week. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Philip Glosner and Tip Osterhaler from SES. Now I've heard your presentation today about government services and hosted payloads. What is it that SES offers that is attracting governments and institutions to use your satellites?
I think what SES can offer is it can listen to customers and then produce programs and responses and solutions that actually fit the requirements of our customers very adequately.
Now, what is driving this market? Is it clearly a case of economics now, that governments can't launch their own satellites, they don't have the money?
Well, I think it's predominantly economics, but that's not the only factor. I mean, SES is a global operator with a very active launch schedule, launching 8 more satellites between now and 2014. And so there's a lot of opportunities to get on orbit. If you start a satellite program on your own, you're 3 to 4 years away from getting on orbit. But if you're able to put a payload on someone else's satellite that's already in the schedule and on the launch manifest, then you can get there faster and you can almost always get there a lot cheaper.
But are there any problems with hosting government payloads in terms of security, cost and manufacturing time?
Cost is generally nothing but positive. I mean, sharing the cost of a launch, sharing the cost of a bus is almost always a winner for the owner of the hosted payload. There are challenges. They can be associated with security. They can be technical challenges. Not all hosted payloads are easy to integrate. In the case of the hosted payloads that we're doing right now, the commercially hosted infrared payload, it was not terribly complex integration. It was only about a 100-kilo package, and we're able to do that in only about 2 years. So both time and cost for that kind of a payload was quite good. For more intrusive, larger payloads, there could be more challenges, and certainly for classified payloads like the Chirp payload, there are some special security considerations, but we were able to overcome them with Chirp.
Now, Philip, you've got the competitor Intelsat. They've got a government services division. How difficult is it to compete against them?
I think we are acting in also 2 different scope of the markets. What we are trying to do is really from the scratch help our customers or the people who are interested in working together with SES of finding their solution that may be just a network implementation, maybe just capacity, but it may also be designing and helping them to host, if you want, the payload on our satellites, as Tip just mentioned, or really have a very custom-built solution on one of our satellites. So can we compare to each other? We can, but we all, at the same time, we cannot, because we are certainly looking at this market from a more infrastructure basis or level, and we are trying in that sense to stay in our satellite operator business while maybe the competition is looking at other scopes.
Now you're going to be expanding your fleet over the next few years.
Yes.
How much of this is taking into account the expansion of hosted payloads?
I think what we are doing internally now is looking almost systematically now at opportunities on our satellites that we engineer. If there's an opportunity to host, if you want, a payload from a customer or a very custom-tailored payload. So in that sense, every new satellite and new satellites to come during the next years will be interesting for us and also for the customers, because we want to leverage our conveyor belt of satellites, if you may call it like that, to support the requirements of our customers.
Now, Tip, do any of the commercial customers that you have object to a government-hosted payload in any way?
No, so far they haven't. I mean, there are a whole range of hosted payloads that one could contemplate, and there may be concerns on the part of some commercial customers for a variety of reasons, but so far we haven't really run into that. You hear questions about whether or not, if you host, for example, a military payload, would that make the satellite an attractive target in times of conflict? The kinds of payloads that we're hosting they're certainly not weapons, they're not related to weapons, they're communications payloads, or they may be special sensors. But so far we haven't had any serious objections from our customers or our investors.
Now, you've been involved in the Galileo project, which has come in for a lot of criticism. What's your view on the Galileo project? Where are we with this, and is it that important to Europe?
The Galileo program, I think, is really important to Europe. It allows Europe actually to have a certain independence from other networks. I think, yes, the program has taken a lot of time, but it's a very material project, and it is probably going to see now its final realization during the next few years, because the major steps in terms of procurement have been made, and are now also the first launches of the first two satellites have happened. And I believe that the public institutions that run and that own the Galileo constellation, as well as the private industry that supports the program in terms of infrastructure, ground networks, operations, have a role to play. So I think actually it's a very important asset that Europe is going to have during the years to come.
So, going back to the institutions and governments, what about things like disaster recovery, which in certain cases are run by Homeland Security and so on? How big a part of that business are you involved in?
It's a good point that you mention it. You should know that as of the 1st of January next year, SES is going to launch a platform that is called emergency.lu, which is actually a service which is exactly aimed at preparing a network that is readily available in case of emergencies. The Luxembourg government actually has invested into a project that actually for 3 years is going to put or reserve and make available capacity all around the globe. So we have capacity on 3 satellites of SES. We have the ground networks. We have 3 platforms around the globe. And the Luxembourg government, in conjunction with the UN World Food Programme, is going to operate, or is going to at least use this network in order to bring immediate and fast response disaster relief communications into territories that are affected like by an earthquake or flooding or things like that. So we believe for sure that the disaster recovery or emergency networks are going to play an increasing role in the satellite business, because satellite is the only mean to provide communications means also to the first emergency teams coming on the ground in order to communicate the extent of the harm caused by people and population in order to save lives. So it is for sure satellite there has a unique role to play, and we are happy that we are involved in this project that I just mentioned to you, but also in others which are currently under discussion.
Now, Tip, the economic climate suggests that more government institutions will go towards hosted payload. Is that the way you see it?
I think that the economic arguments are exceedingly strong on the commercially hosted IR payload. The U.S. Air Force estimated that they spent only about 15% of what they would have had to spend to get that payload on orbit any other way, and that's just an overwhelming economic argument. But I think there are other arguments as well. The ability of the commercial industry, the proven ability to keep the schedule and keep the cost, is very important for a lot of customers trying to get hosted payloads on orbit. We were able to orbit Chirp in less than 3 years from the time that we signed the contract. A typical government spacecraft program will take at least 10 years. So in terms of speed to orbit, cost to orbit, reliability of schedule, hosted payloads are just a terrific option for most people to consider if they need to get a less than a full payload on geosynchronous orbit.
Are there still any skeptics out there with regard to hosted payloads and what companies like SES can offer?
From the external market, I don't think so, because our customers as such, or the ones coming to us, really see and investigate if there's an opportunity for us to carry one of their missions. So of course, if there's a risk, they wouldn't come to us. So from that side, no, I don't think there are many risks. The only points we will always, and any commercial operator will always need to evaluate is, of course, would the hosted payload have a large impact on the prime hosting platform, on the mission that is actually has been denominated as the prime mission. But in any case, that's a case-by-case evaluation, that's case-by-case engineering, and it's a case-by-case decision. But in generically, you can say, there is no real barrier to hosted payloads once these elements, technical, financial, and all fit. And that's why, we have proven with now 3 payloads, dedicated payloads for institutions and governments, that actually SES is able to deliver services where institutions or governments really want to have the support of the commercial industry. And so that's what we are here for, and that's also we are looking forward also to having other opportunities during the next months and years to come.
I think for the U.S. government there There are some remaining skeptics. The U.S. government is used to buying and flying its own satellites. And for the people that have been in that business for a long time, the thought of sharing risk and sharing a platform with someone that they don't have complete control of, who has other objectives as well, can be a little bit unnerving. But I think, again, the economic arguments and the confidence that people are gaining because of our successful program so far is helping to break down those barriers.
And finally, SES moving forward, where do you see the next major developments in terms of the company?
I think one element will certainly be that SES will continue to try to grow, to find avenues of growth. It might certainly also look into diversifying a little bit its activities in domain which are not too far from its nominal business, but I think the future for us is bright. There are enough opportunities out there. It's just up to us to define them and to grasp the opportunities when they arise, so when we see we have a chance to address actually customer requirements. That's what it is.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
You're welcome.